What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it is FPL transfer tips ahead of Game Week 32. So we're taking a look at the transfer market, seeing who's being bought, who's being sold, are people making a mistake, should they be avoiding these players, should they be definitely getting them in. I'm going to give you my opinion as well as a few kind of transfer options, like players to bring in instead, right? If you're looking to take them out, who are you bringing in? So we're going to go through all that, give my opinion as normal. Please do give it a like if you enjoy it. Hit subscribe if you're new around here. Let's get into the first player. So before I jump into talking about Stuart Dallas, right, I've not included Jesse Lingard on this list, right? There's no bias or anything like that. It's just that I've already spoken about him a lot on the stream, and I included him in yesterday's video, so I didn't want to go through it all over again, because I don't really have too much new to add, but he has been transferred in by a lot of managers, and obviously, yeah, it's very hard to say it's a bad call at this point, especially given his price point, right? And we'll probably talk about him slightly in this video later on when we talk about players that are being sold. But we're going to start off with Dallas, who's been brought already by 77,843 managers. Now, we know that he's just got 17 points, right? And no one sees that and completely ignores it. But you have to look at the fixtures. Like, this is easy. This is an avoid, right? If you don't already own Stuart Dallas, this is not the time to be bringing him in my opinion, right? You look at the next four fixtures, and I think Liverpool, Man United and Spurs, I think all three of those teams score against Leeds. The one thing I will say is a lot of people did point out that Leeds were maybe a little bit more cautious in how they approach the game versus Man City. They're usually quite a gung-ho team. They're happy to counter-attack, to pile men forward and kind of leave them, I wouldn't say exposed at the back, because they do trap back so quick and get back into position, but we know how many chances they give up, and perhaps there's a slight tweak in how they're going to approach these big games where they have struggled, right? Let's be honest, they conceded 4 to Liverpool, 6 to Man United, I think it was 3 to Spurs as well, so maybe they do need to tone it down a little bit, and obviously we can only speculate whether they will do that. But either way, clean sheets are not looking likely over the next 4, right? And I hope you don't mind this, right? But I've started using my other screen a lot while I do these videos just to get some other points across. And I know you can't see it, so it's annoying. But after the Spurs game, it's Burnley, Southampton, West Brom. Great fixtures. I've already considered bringing him back, right? I won't get into the fact that I should never have sold him in the first place. But those fixtures are good, and I'd look to have him. But let's not pretend like he's quite expensive, I think. 5.1 million. Of course, it's not like Trent, and he has got good goal threat, right? He has already scored 7 goals this season. It's not a complete fluke, but he's only had 4 shots in the box over the last 6 matches. So 4 over the last 6 matches, and he happened to score 2 goals against Man City. Like, you can't write that. You have to put that down as just a freak situation that is not going to repeat itself. And yeah, for 5.1 million, I just think there's better options right now that are cheaper with better fixtures that are going to get you more consistent returns. Yes, he's got 10 attacking returns in total, so if you've got him on your bench, perfect. He's a great bench option, and if he has to come on, you're never really that worried, because he does have the chance of scoring. But to bring him in, mistake in my opinion, because why would you be looking to play him over like kind of 3 of the next 4? So yeah, definitely a hard avoid for me. So Gundogan's coming up again this week, so 169,000 transfers out already, 169,515 to be exact, and I've had a look now. I feel like this is kind of, at least it's gone under the radar a little bit for me. I knew he didn't start against Leicester. That made me think that he was going to start against Leeds, potentially, in Game Week 31. Obviously, I knew it was a risk, but I kept him. I know a lot of people did that, and he didn't start. But then I remember that he missed out 29 because of the blank, and he also didn't start in Game Week 28 against Fulham. So Gundogan's now missed the last 3 Premier League matches, right? Now, obviously, we know Man City are doing that because, or Pep Guardiola is doing that because of the Champions League, EFL Cup, FA Cup, etc. But that doesn't, like, if they go through the quarterfinals, which I think we'll find out tomorrow, I think it's on Wednesday, that game. If they go through to the semis, then this kind of fixture run doesn't really stop. They keep having like a couple of fixtures in between league ones, and I just don't think going forward you can guarantee his minutes. The only slight caveat is they did lose to Leeds. Now, if they had won that game, then yeah, I don't see why Pep wouldn't have rotated again, and he probably will rotate for the Aston Villa game, because realistically no one's going to catch them in the league, but you still want it wrapped up, right? And I think the way that they performed against Leeds will maybe make him tweak a few things. So I'm not saying he won't rotate, but he might tweak the amount of players that he rotates. So will he drop Gundogan and De Bruyne, or will he play one of them in every single match? We don't know. We don't also have the luxury of seeing the FA Cup lineup either, because that is coming after the deadline. So basically for teams in Europe, they will play their European match this week, then we'll have the Game Week 32 deadline, then they'll play their FA Cup match, and then they'll play the league match. So not only do we not see the extra lineup, because maybe they get rested in the FA Cup, it's unlikely, but maybe. We also don't get to see if they get injured or anything like that. And then he's got a blank afterwards anyway, and it's Chelsea in 35. So the next 4 game weeks only include Villa and Palace. Now, if he plays both of them, I still think for his price, he's one of the best options, right? Even comparable to Lingard. I'm just going to say it. I think if he plays against Villa and Palace, I think he can score or outscore even Lingard potentially in those game weeks. But you can't guarantee his minutes. Someone like Lingard, maybe even Bowen, now that Antonio is possibly out for kind of a few weeks, could be better options. And I'll talk a bit more about replacements in a sec, because there's another player who's being transferred out heavily we need to talk about. But for me, it's possibly time to go. The only reason I would risk Villa is if I had a really good bench. But even then, he came on against Leeds, and the same thing could happen against Villa unless they get the match wrapped up quickly, and I think a lot of that depends on Grealish. I don't think he's going to make this game, by the way, Grealish, but you never know. So yeah, I think Gundogan is a good sell. I think I don't think Man City players are completely out of the equation when it comes to FPL, but they've had their kind of really good period with their great fixtures, very limited rotation, like when Laporte was injured, so Stones was playing. That's changed now. Loads of rotation. They've got a blank. It's probably a good time to sell. So Neto, quite a few transfers out. Not quite as many as Gundogan, but I don't think he was probably owned by as many managers. Obviously, a lot of people had Gundogan left over from Man City's great spell and his great spell. Neto, 83,372 transfers out already. Now, the news is that he's out for the rest of the season, so this is an easy sell. Unfortunately, if you've got him on wildcard, like with those, look at those fixtures: Sheffield United, Burnley at home, West Brom away, Brighton at home. Really good fixtures. His underlying numbers were pretty good too. 9 shots in the box, 11 chances created. And I think that some people would have gone for him over Lingard, and obviously that has hurt this week. I still stand by the fact I think that was a pretty good decision. Obviously, with those kind of decisions, you don't really know how they've worked out for like at least 3, 4, 5 weeks. But unfortunately, Neto's injured now, so we're never going to know. But obviously, Lingard did smash him in Game Week 31. So it's a bit frustrating if you went Neto over Lingard. I probably would have done the same thing on wildcard, to be completely honest. But it is what it is. You can rectify that now. Now, he is only, I'm looking here, 5.7 million. So his replacements are going to depend on how much money you've got in the bank, whether you're prepared to take a hit. And stuff like that. So Lingard, for example, I'm just looking here. So I'm looking at mids at 7 million or under. Lingard has gone up to 6.5 million overnight. So he went up from Monday into Tuesday overnight. So he's 6.5 million now. So he's actually like 0.8 million more than Neto. For some people, they're not going to be able to stretch that much. But he does look like a good option. It's hard to find reasons not to bring him in. If you wanted to go for West Ham, but not necessarily, or you couldn't afford Lingard, then you got Bowen, who I talked about yesterday. Now, the one kind of thing that Lingard has over Bowen is guaranteed minutes. Bowen has started the last 4, but in one of them he only finished 73 minutes, another one it was 54 minutes, another one it was 83 minutes. Now, with Antonio out, and we think he's going to be out, right? So I follow a guy called ex-West Ham employee on Twitter. Really good follow if you use Twitter. Very knowledgeable on West Ham stuff. And he is saying that it's not as bad as being reported. So he's not out for the season, Antonio, but it is worse than kind of Moyes was saying, which they were kind of hopeful. And he's kind of saying 4 to 6 weeks. Now, none of this has been confirmed yet. But if Antonio's out for 4 to 6 weeks, they haven't really got a striker, and therefore Bowen comes into play. Now, the only thing that would really sway me towards Lingard over Bowen is if Antonio was only going to be out for like 1 or 2 weeks, which we'll find out later on in the week when we have press conferences, then there is a chance that Bowen's minutes go down a little bit again. He hasn't been consistent for the season. He mostly plays, right? I'm not saying he's like a really just a bit part player, but if you can afford to stretch up to Lingard, you pretty much get guaranteed starts, guaranteed minutes. Other options potentially, there's Pereira for West Brom, and obviously he is on a lot of set pieces, including penalties. And funnily enough, I know this is going to sound like massive hindsight now, but when I was looking for cheap mids before I bought in Alonso for Game Week 33, when I was planning on getting Fernandes, he was one that came up because it's Villa away and then Wolves at home on 33 and 34. The problem is after that, it's like Arsenal, then Liverpool, which isn't great. But they do end the season with West Ham and Leeds. They're obviously on a bit of a charge. I do think they've improved slightly I'm not saying they're now this great goal-scoring team and, they're going to keep loads of clean sheets, but I think there has been an improvement there. And also, it's kind of, yes, they're trying to fight for their place, but it's also kind of pressure off. No one's expecting them to stay up. So perhaps he's a good pick. But ultimately, I think you want to go towards West Ham, Newcastle this week, and then obviously it's Chelsea, but they play in 33, and then they've got good fixtures to end. I'll probably do a little bit more on replacements in a game week preview video tomorrow. But ultimately, yeah, Neto's a good sell. Bowen and Lingard, depending on how much money you've got. Saka, but if he's injured, he's no good. It's all the problem. I think you've got to go to the West Ham boys. So a bit like Dallas, right? You don't score a goal, get double digits, and then people ignore you, right? So he has been transferred in, not quite as heavily, probably because of his price, right? He's still 7.3 million. I don't think he's gone up in price. Just checking it yet. Oh, he's actually 7.4 million, right? I should probably put that on the screen somewhere. But he's still been transferred in by nearly 50,000 managers. That will probably continue to grow. And I think, look, you've heard me speak about fixtures a lot. I think, to be honest, out of defensive fixtures where I expect clean sheets, I think Leeds might be the trickiest, because the Man United game I expect to be quite tight. And after Leeds, it's Newcastle, Man United, Southampton, West Brom, Burnley and Palace. There's loads of clean sheet potential there. Now, the thing with Trent is he's 7.4 million, as I just said incorrectly just a minute ago. But he is not 7.3, he's 7.4. And it's trying to fit him into your side. Now, I don't think he's worth completely restructuring your team for. If you'd have to make 2, 3, 4 transfers to get him in because your cash is so spread around, I think you make do without. And look, clean sheets are the bread and butter for a defender. So if you've got Phillips for 4 million, there's a lot of value there. The reason that I went for Trent is because he's still quite a big differential, because a lot of people can't get to him easily, so they're ignoring him. A lot of people still don't trust Liverpool. So if you're willing to back them, you can get ahead of the crowd there. And also, I am backing Liverpool, and the fixtures are so good that I'm not really looking for the value picks necessarily. Now, I do have Jota, because I don't think there's really a good case to necessarily go for Mane over him right now. But I also have Salah, because I still think he is great. So sometimes we do want value players in FPL, absolutely. But you have to spend your budget at some point, and sometimes you do pay a premium to kind of get guaranteed returns. And I feel like that's what I've done with Trent. And therefore, I do think he's a really good buy if you can do it in a couple of moves. You could potentially go without him for the Leeds game. I think from Newcastle onwards, it gets quite a bit more difficult to ignore him. The reason I say that about Leeds is, right, I've put it as a green fixture, but we know how attacking they can be, and I don't want to just completely change my thoughts on Leeds as a team based on that Man City game, especially a game where they were down to 10 men for so much of it. Harrison will be back as well, so either him or Rafinha, because sometimes they do switch sides in games, not very often I know, but they're going to be up against Trent. Will they pin him back? Will they reduce his amount of attacking output, which, by the way, has been incredible recently? 17 chances created in the last 6. He's almost creating 3 chances a game, and he's having shots as well. He is getting further forward. We've seen that quite a bit over the last kind of 4, 5, 6 weeks. So I think he's a good buy. I don't necessarily think, like I said, you should completely restructure your squad to get him. But if you've got an easy route to him and it doesn't hurt you with your captaincy options, so your Kanes, your Salahs, your Fernandezes, etc., then yeah, I think he's a really good buy. And I think 50,000 managers, it'd probably be more by the deadline. So unsurprisingly, Iheanacho massively transferred in, 256,000 plus transfers and counting. That is only going to go up as the week goes on. It'll be way past 300,000, I would say, by the deadline. I was having a look at his ownership. So he's 10.5% overall owned. He's 37.68% owned in the top 10k. That tends to be where I start looking now, because it gives a good representation of active managers. So 37.68% ownership, although interestingly, his effective ownership last week was only 34%, which means quite a few people benched him, which they will not be doing going forward, I would imagine. There's not much to say here, right? He's a great purchase. He's such a good price. He's definitely going to go up in price by the end of this week. So I'm just looking here. He's 5.9. He'll definitely be 6 before the deadline. Maybe only 6 because it's a Friday deadline, but he could be 6.1. Obviously, it's a great price to pay. The great thing is, his fixtures up to 35 are brilliant. And then from 36, 37 and 38, it's Man United away, Chelsea away and Spurs at home. And those 3 fixtures, basically, or those 3 game weeks, is when Bamford has Burnley, Southampton, West Brom. So it seems a bit too easy. You swap Bamford if you've got him to Iheanacho now, and then you switch back in game week 36. Obviously, Iheanacho's a bit less money. Bamford will probably drop in price a little bit, but not massively by that point. So you might need to keep some money in reserve or have a plan to downgrade another player. but I just can't see any reason not to buy him, right? The only reason that anyone has, including myself, is will he keep playing? I think Harvey Barnes is the key to that because he is playing so well with Vardy up front that the easy swap to me would be to play Perez or just bring Maddison into that number 10 slot. So they're playing like 3-4-1-2. And that's it, right? Don't take Iheanacho out of the team while he's in such good form. When Barnes comes back, it gives them a chance to play with a bit more width. They might play with one player either side of Vardy, and they might bench Iheanacho. But there's nothing to say that's going to happen. There's nothing to say Barnes is going to be back like this week or next week either. And West Brom, Palace, Southampton, Newcastle were just too good to turn down. Look at the stats. 14 shots in the box, 7 chances created. His expected goals 3.32, expected assists 1.08. Over 6 matches, that's incredible. Like, people keep asking me why I didn't bring him in last week. The plan was always to get him for me this week. I only got Vardy last week because I could afford it, and I knew I was going to have both this week anyway. And yeah, there ain't much more to say. This is a great buy. The only reason, like I said, is potential not going to keep playing, but I think he will. Is he overperforming a bit like Jesse Lingard? Maybe slightly, but not quite as much because his underlying stats are a little bit better. But either way, they're both very cheap. They've both got good fixtures. And like I said, the stats overall, especially for Iheanacho, are looking brilliant. Just bring him in if you've got a spare transfer. So that's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed it, please do give it a like and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell if you are new around here and you haven't already hit that bell. Just do that and let you know when every single video goes live. I will be back tomorrow with the Game Week preview. Team selection as normal now will be on Thursday when I'll talk about my transfers. I've got to be honest, I am tempted to do early transfers because prices are getting a little bit tight for the moves that I potentially want to make. If I do them early, obviously I'll have them written up on Patreon as soon as I do them, and I'll talk about them on Thursday. Obviously, if I haven't done them by then I won't. But yeah, I am thinking of going early this week. I don't like doing it, but I think I've trapped myself with that Alonso transfer, which I'll talk about more when I write up on Patreon. And I'll talk about it a little bit more on the team selection video. If you haven't already signed up to Patreon, there is a link in the description below. I didn't just do that little thing about my team just to have a good segue, but it was a pretty good segue. Thank you to everybody that has already signed up. And a big shout out to Alex H. And I've put down this transfer algorithm just to fit it in, but it's Mikel who does the FPL transfer algorithm. If you go and Google that, Patreon FPL transfer algorithm, you will find that. So thank you to everyone for their support. Alex H as well, big shout out to you being a new Patreon. I'll leave it there. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and I will see you again tomorrow.